let's bake a super pretty dessert. So I had this at a restaurant not too long ago, and I was like, I can totally make this at home. So first things first, my butter was in the freezer, which is why it is such a hard chop as I am doing this, okay? I pre-froze my butter so that it would be easier for me to already have it cold as we were preparing for our crust. So for this, you are gonna mise en place, which means gather all of your ingredients before you start. We need 10 tablespoons of very cold, frozen, salted butter. All right, so we're gonna get all of our butter, we're gonna put it together, and then we're gonna set it to the side. Next, we're going to need 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. You will notice I am not scooping my flour and then pouring it in the bowl. That is not the proper way to measure flour. When you're doing this, you want to put it into your measuring cup. Use a knife to tap all of the air pockets out, and then you're going to scrape it off. I'm going to get rid of the excess, and then I'm going to pour my now fully measured flour. And we're going to do that 3 times because I'm using 1/2 cup. So now we have 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, followed by 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. I'm getting my egg wash ready, so we're going to separate our egg here, and then I'm also going to need 4 to 6 tablespoons of ice water. So for my egg wash for this one, I'm just adding a splash of milk to it, and I'm going to leave this out as we continue doing this. So next we're going to add in our sugar. This is going to go on the outside of our crust. Trust me, you're gonna need this much cane sugar, I promise. Now we're working on our filling. So we're gonna measure out 1/4 cup of packed brown sugar. We're gonna add in some lemon juice, about 1 tablespoon, some vanilla extract. We did 1.5 teaspoons. And then I'm gonna do all of my dry ingredients. So we're gonna need 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. We're gonna need 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/8 teaspoon of ground ginger, and 1/8 teaspoon of kosher salt. And then this is going to be for our little glaze on top. This is apricot jelly, but you could also use a peach jelly if that's what you had. I went with apricot because I did make several flavors of this dessert, and using the apricot jelly would work across all of them. So we're gonna make our dough, and we're gonna make it in the food processor. So we're gonna put in our flour, we're gonna put in our salt, we're gonna put in our butter, and then we will slowly add in our water. Now, you may have noticed there was a little bit of hesitation with the water. I was watching what the dough was looking like through the outside of it, and I knew that I didn't need that entire tablespoon. And so that's something you're going to want to pay attention to, is if you're in a climate where it's really, really rainy, you might not need as much water. If you're in a really dry climate, then you might need more water. This is really going to be something that you look at depending on what it looks like. So as we prepare to bring this dough together, this is going to be a lot of manually bringing it together. So we're going to squeeze it together. You will be able to tell if your dough is too dry. What I have noticed with this dough already is that some pieces of it is a little more moist than others. And so I'm going to do my best to try and distribute that throughout. If at any point it doesn't feel like it's all coming together in a way that I want it to, then I'll add just a little bit of water to it. So we're mashing it together. I'm trying not to disturb the dough too much as I'm doing this. Also, my hands are warming up because I've done so much work. As you can see, the dough is getting softer and my hands are a little shiny. That means the butter is starting to melt. So here's my favorite part of this. If you want to get those really pretty designs, that swirl pattern, you're going to cut your peach like this. So we're going to go around the peach, and then you're going to cut, like once we twist it apart, that did not take a lot of work either, okay? Then you're going to cut it on the side of the pit, and then you're going to be able to twist that apart again, and then you'll make your slices, okay? Very easy. So for the peaches, I'm going with a pretty thin cut, but not too thin. I want them thin enough to fan out as we prepare to put this in the oven, but I don't want them too thin that they're going to be like super soggy as we prepare to bake it. So remember when we mise en place earlier, now we can take everything that we have already pulled together and just add it to the bowl. So now we're going to add all of our brown sugar, our lemon juice, our vanilla extract, cornstarch, cinnamon, ground ginger, as well as the salt, and stir it up. Once everything is nice and incorporated, set it to the side. And now we are going to grab our dough that I let chill for a little bit to not be as soft. We're now going to roll it out. Now, here's the tea. This does not have to be perfect, okay? You're going to take your rolling pin, and I'm using some pretty good pressure, right? Not too hard, but just hard enough. And you notice that I'm starting in the center and then I'm rolling out. I'm also picking it up and turning it each time. The reason for this is that this dough will stick to your counter. You do not want the dough to stick to your counter. You also don't want to add too much flour to the dough as you do it, okay? So we're going to be very mindful of these things. The other thing I want you to start looking at as you are working on, like, this is what I would call a shaggy pie crust, right? Number one, you can see that there's some chunks of butter in it. We love to see that. Secondly, I can see the thickness of this pie crust on the top. You'll also notice me at some point start feeling around the top of it so that I can feel if we are the same thickness all the way around it. Once we have our pie crust fully rolled out, we're then going to fold it on the rolling pin, and we're going to lift it to put it on a pan that has parchment paper on it, and that is where we are going to place it while we prepare to do our fanning of the peaches. Now, let me remind you, this doesn't have to be perfect, all right? If you decide to take the peaches and just dump them in the center, that's on you, boo. That's cool. But I knew I was going to take a picture. And so we are now going to sit here and we're going to fan these out. All right, now that we've got all our peaches coming together, and yes, this took me about 10 minutes, okay? So the magic of speeding things up, we are then going to fold over the crust, All right, remember, it doesn't have to be pretty. The more rustic it looks, the better. The real showstopper of it all are the fanned out slices of peaches. And so once we fold this over, we're going to take that egg wash that we made earlier, brush it on there, and then we're going to sprinkle a generous portion of cane sugar all over the outside of this, because remember, there is no sugar in our pie crust dough. I literally wish you could smell this video. It smelled incredible. So I am going to just dab on the apricot jam. Even though it's been sitting out at room temperature for a while, you may also need to just pop it in the microwave for a couple of seconds, which is what I'm going to do in a moment, so that you can easily put this on here without your peaches moving out of place. Now that we've completed this super simple, super delicious, super pretty dessert, I hope you'll give it a try. You can grab this recipe as well as many more on teachmehowtobake.com.